Welcome to hell. Hello, ladies, where feminism meets pro wrestling. I am Sabrina.
And I'm MJ.
And we are your hostesses with the mostesses here today. Um, I hope everyone watching this on YouTube enjoyed the show there. We're trying something new.
Let's go. Just kidding.
Well, if you're listening on Spotify or wherever, you don't know. So clearly you should listen to this all the way and then go and watch the then just go and watch us, get double the fun.
And subscribe while you're there.
Yes. Rate, review, all of that. We're giving
Yes.
you homework. This now has homework.
I feel like the people who watch this regularly would just be like, this is par for the course.
Yeah, yeah. Also, if you're watching, you're going to get to see MJ's sweet doggy shirt, which I'm in love with.
That's true. Pugs, not drugs.
I was trying to think of a pug comment and I was like pugging out. I'm like, that's not, I don't know.
Pugtastic? Pugtacular?
All of that. Yeah, none of that came to my mind. So, you
I
know,
used to get I used to
oh,
get paid to make goofy ass animal puns, so I think they just come out full bore now.
So today we are going to be talking about the world of wrestling. Shocker. I feel like we haven't done that in so long, just like things that have been
Yeah.
going on. So we're gonna do that today.
It's it's wild. Sabrina and I were just talking about this off camera, how much stuff has literally happened even just in the last like month and a half. It's been wild.
Yeah. And like part of that is obviously because of WrestleMania and like Tony
Yeah.
Khan is just like, I am going to give you a run for your money. And for fans, it's just like, yes, great.
I freaking
Perfect.
love it so much. So I was just actually listening to a podcast. Of course, I'm a big Chris Van Vliet listener, follower, whatever. And he had Sam Roberts on, who's also awesome. And so it was kind of like a cool like meeting of the wrestling podcaster minds. And I didn't even key in Sabrina to this, but it's interesting how like when I think about different eras of wrestling, because they were kind of talking about the same thing we're talking about, like wrestling has been awesome. Like this is like, and this is something that Sabrina and I've talked about forever, is that people are going to look back on this time in wrestling and be like, it was so awesome. Meanwhile, people are still overly nostalgic for the Attitude Era and stuck in that mindset and think that wrestling sucks now. And then they're going to look back on this time period later and be like, it was awesome. I took it for granted. But but yeah, so they said they were trying to identify. So I'm curious what Sabrina will say for this. And I didn't give Sabrina a heads up on this at all. And if you're watching this, you can tell by her face. So this era of wrestling, because it feels like we're shifting from like this almost PG era, right, in WWE onward. Like I feel like you could kind of say a couple different things, because even though Attitude Era was like linked largely to WWE, it was also linked to WCW, right? Because it was this reactionary, like this Monday Night Wars thing that kind of created. They just call it the Attitude Era associated with WWE, but it still reflects that in different promotions as well. So I feel like that's really interesting how people are saying that the PG era is ending right now, but I don't think that's the case. I personally feel like it's kind of been over for a while, but we still hold on to little aspects of it. So I wanted to ask Sabrina what she thinks. And I'll start off by telling you what Sam and Chris Van Vliet said. So they said that kind of nearing like when Roman Reigns first took over the championship was when the PG era officially ended, because you kind of had that one moment where it was Paul Heyman and him backstage and you could see, oh shit, now all of a sudden Roman Reigns is a Paul Heyman guy. This kind of flipped the script on everything. And whereas Chris Van Vliet said that he thought that it was when Seth came back, or sorry, when Cody came back to WWE at WrestleMania 28, and that kind of moment kind of bridged everything. And actually, I just got it confused. I think Sam said Cody comes back, and Chris said the Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman part.
I think we're definitely in like I would call it like a PG plus era. I don't think we're gonna get like whatever that they're going to call it until they're on Netflix. And I feel like they're gearing up for that change.
Yeah.
So it's not such a stark thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously what we're seeing now is very different than what we were seeing 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I say 3 years ago because like both of those events that are like were gear shifters.
Yeah.
However, I have a different take, actually.
Okay.
So, and I mean,
Okay, if you say the same thing that because I have a different answer than both those guys. So in my head, I'm like, is our flame brain powers like united in this way? I don't even know what you're gonna say.
I think it's when Rhea became mommy.
Oh.
Like, there was such a shift with that. And like,
Hmm.
obviously, tides have been turning certainly since Roman went a little darker.
Sure.
Um, and like, um, and when we started getting like things like the Who's Your Daddy chants and things like
Mhm.
that with Austin Theory. So really, Vince like sliding out is behind the scenes what is
Yeah.
prompting a lot of this. And but I think having key players in place like Roman, Cody, Rhea, specifically, who, yeah, I think Rhea is a big, and Dominic for that matter, the two of them. Um,
Yeah.
and when they started to do the things on YouTube and like,
Yeah.
and like when that stuff really started to get rolling, yeah, yeah.
I love that because you're right. That really bridged like this kayfabe thing because I feel like before that we would constantly complain as fans and say social media sucks, it's ruining wrestling. But now I feel like what you're saying, we've had Rhea and Dom bridging that gap, and now we have Drew who's doing it so well. And as much as I fucking love Chelsea Green, it pained me because I had to vote in the Slammies for Drew McIntyre because his use of social media in the last few months has just made my fucking year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. And I think that it's people like have that recency bias in wrestling, like you and I've talked about, and they forget that they used to bitch like 2 years ago about social media being the thing that's ruining kayfabe or ruining wrestling. But now I feel like wrestlers are flipping it on its head and they're just like, no, I'm taking this back and you don't give me enough screen time, I am gonna fucking make my own stories. And you see
Hmm.
now companies are doing it too. AEW posts a ton of web exclusive clips and things to help build storylines, which is
Yes.
very evident, which is very propelled by your earrings, your BTE earrings, because I feel like that was the first thing that AEW was doing constantly. They were propelling storylines on BTE.
Hmm.
And yeah, and so now they're taking it one step further where they're applying that to social media as well for AEW's personal channels.
Yeah. And like, exactly. BTE, like the Young Bucks, Cody, and Kenny Omega, as well as a bunch of other people, like when they were in New Japan, like that's just how they got things rolling with
Yeah,
so many different things. And I mean, that's very much so why we have an AEW, um, because of
true.
BTE, quite frankly, which is so weird to think about, but it's the truth. Like, yeah. So it's um I feel like what Rhea and Dom have done is really taking, and the world knows, right, that Rhea and Dominic are not together and that they have partners outside of wrestling. Um,
What?
right, right, crazy. Um, but like are still okay and like very accepting and very into the storyline that they're doing on TV, which I think is the first time we've really seen that. Because if you think back to like when Lana and uh
Rusev?
Rusev and Ziggler, when Lana and Miro came out as being engaged, they killed the storyline with her and Ziggler, like
Yeah.
him. Like this is completely new for WWE to be like going along with. And again, it's because some people who were backstage are no longer backstage. Thank God. Um, so, uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things sliding into the right places for WWE. Um, and fans uh going along with it, thank God.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what's crazy is as we're talking, you're giving me more ideas for like, and I'm almost like, are we having like, I think about things from like a, I really love history too, and think about like different events that transpire to kickstart major events, whether it's like a war, whether it's the formation of a new country, whatever, things like that. And so I think about that in terms of like now in my head, I feel like I have like all these wheels turning where I'm like, have we been in like different eras with like ever since like ever since PG era? Have there been different eras since then, even? You know, like how you're talking about a PG plus? Like
Hmm.
I almost feel like in my head, I'm like, I think about, and I think people don't even talk about how AEW has different eras because we link eras in wrestling so much just to WWE that now in my head I'm thinking about how AEW has also gone through a couple different eras in their lifespan, starting with even before they were formed, like you're talking about, when like these guys started this YouTube channel and it kickstarted in this entire thing.
Yeah. And I think with AEW, the company, you can easily make there's got to be at least two eras that you speak of. Um
Yeah.
Arguably three, but one of them's like real short-lived with CM Punk. But
Yeah.
I mean, there was the beginning days, and I mean everything now. I mean, the pandemic was its own thing, right? Like
Mhm.
the empty arena era and all of that, which I mean, I think, ooh, actually, I think you could probably say the PG era officially ended with that because that was its own weird thing. Um,
Oh
with,
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
that like a world event, like, and like that was a hard shutdown on that. Um, and
I
was,
love that because I didn't even think about that. And like now that I'm saying that, I'm wondering if like that moment with Paul Heyman and Roman backstage was kind of like this igniter of like a different era in that way, essentially.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because like it's weird to say, but like I kind of feel like when one era clearly ends, there might a new era doesn't necessarily emerge in that moment.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think they found their footing for a while because of the pandemic. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. You know, and I almost feel like when we think about eras and stuff too, I also feel like the formation of All In and the beginnings of AEW also impacts WWE because for a while we were seeing, and even under Vince, there were certain aspects where things were improving with content as a direct result of the competition with AEW and the fear from that.
Hmm.
And then there was that period of time where Vince was clearly still involved, but not involved, at least how they wanted to portray it publicly. But we still knew, you know, especially
Hmm.
according to like some of the stuff Ronda Rousey's coming out with now, where yeah, Vince wasn't there, but Bruce Pritchard was getting texts, you know, for how to proceed with things. So it's like he
Little
was there,
puppet
just not
man.
there. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I just had a thought and and like we're only talking about AEW and WWE, but like truth be told, like the creation of AEW has affected the entire wrestling industry. I mean, even um Impact now TNA again has had like a resurgence of
Yeah.
popularity. Wrestling as a whole has. I mean, I feel like New Japan certainly has more eyes on it now because of
Hmm.
like the cross promotion with AEW. Um, and yeah, it's people from the indies are getting spotlighted sometimes on these shows as well, or at least referenced. So.
So that gives me a really good segue to something else we wanted to talk about. And I've had a thought in my head, and I don't know how controversial this is, but how do we feel about, because we want to talk about signings as well, because we've gotten like some really great recent signings from New Japan
Mhm.
with the increased eyes that AEW and events like Forbidden Door and you know people we've had as champions like Shibata and Ring of Honor, while that brings increased eyes and interest to New Japan, what do we feel like is the trade-off with New Japan losing stars like Okada and losing stars like Will Ospreay?
Yeah,
And that's not even up for debate and or like to counter anything that you're saying, Sabrina. It's just in my head. It's something that I've kind of been thinking about where it's like, this is badass for AEW. We're entering like the the elite era of
Mm.
AEW like this with all these stars. But then at the same time, I'm like, how does New Japan feel about this? Are they feeling like it's giving them space to kind of let younger stars rise in their promotion or to give belts to different people who haven't had as much main title pictures, or are they kind of like, well, fuck, there goes two of our like biggest stars, you know?
Yeah. I think there's a couple ways they could be looking at it because since they're working with AEW still,
Mm-hmm.
um those stars aren't like lost to them. Like they can come back for um shows and things like that or for feuds. Um
Mm-hmm.
that being said, like if you if everyone who gets a big platform and shown off in the States suddenly then
Yeah.
signs with AEW, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, like depending on what like their financial statements look like, right? I'm sure that's how
Yes.
they're like if it's just raining money on them, I'm sure they're like, "Yeah, whatever. Like we
Is that an
lost
Okada reference? I'm just kidding.
maybe. Unintentionally. Yes. I mean, no, I was planned. I am a genius. Mwahaha.
I
Uh,
love that you touched on the money statements though, because that's the same thing I'm thinking of because with New Japan having merged through like pro wrestling tees, like are they and also the fact that like I'm not as keyed in at all to the Japanese audience. And like I know how like loyal and diehard culturally speaking like Japanese people are. So in my head I'm like, does this even matter? Or like the Japanese people that diehard loyal to this fan base that they're gonna just keep coming because they are actually that enticed in current storyline. So it doesn't even matter that they've lost two of these names because there's so many other people that they're invested in.
I think for Japanese fans, it probably doesn't matter as much
Mhm.
because of exactly what you've said. I
Mhm.
imagine for like the world audience, that's where the bank statements are going to come in.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And then I also, but I don't know, it's so interesting. I would love to like, this is like the analytical part of my brain where it's like, I want to see like numbers, like from how they've increased, like I want to see like all of like the ROI behind it. Like, where is the loss and the gain since like Forbidden Door, the first Forbidden Door to
Hmm.
now? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it. It's none of my business, but I'm curious about it.
Right. It's only our business up until like we want them to keep doing it. So we want it to continue to be profitable for both companies or worthwhile for both companies. Because I
Yeah.
mean, before Forbidden Door, I mean, people were certainly still leaving and going to like WWE and then never being seen again, like,
Hmm.
from various companies in Japan. So, I mean, a Shinsuke is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Shinsuke, uh, Takeshita just posted a photo with Shinsuke. They were at the airport together, and I was just like, it just warmed my heart. I just loved it. I don't know, their relationship is really cool to me. I just think that's so awesome.
I love
I
Takeshita and Shinsuke in general, but yeah.
Yeah, they're cute. I dig their bromance. You know, like
Hmm.
they're just all buddies all the time. It's pretty cool.
By
But
by all accounts, Shinsuke seems like a really sweet human being. And
totally,
I so love him like in this like evil heel thing that he's doing.
yeah. I feel like Shinsuke is one of those people that like when you talk about who would you want to have like a wrestling roundtable with, I feel like that would be he'd just be like somebody cool to hang out with, you know?
Hmm. Oh yeah, his brain is just so creative. Like the entrances he's always done. Like yeah,
Yeah.
Shinsuke is a wrestling artist.
That's beautiful, Sabrina.
Thank you, thank you. Yes. Mhm.
I love that. Also on the topic of former New Japan stars, Miss Mercedes Moné made her debut in AEW recently.
Would she be new? Wasn't she Stardom?
Yeah, I was linking it in because New Japan Strong title because
Yeah,
she had the first title. Well, actually, after Kyrie was the first holder of the title. Mercedes Moné was the second, but
yeah.
yeah,
Apparently, if you hold
technically
that
Stardom.
title, you just leave that company. Uh, but yeah, I'm really excited about the amount of money she was paid and what that means to women's wrestling as like
Ooh, wait, has it been publicly shared the amount? I haven't even seen.
it's been publicly stated that she was paid she has the largest contract of any woman in wrestling
Current
currently.
contract.
Yes,
Hell yeah. That's badass.
which gives great bargaining chips to other women in wrestling. So, um, you know who's someone that I think is going to have a lot of money thrown at them as soon as their contract comes up with AEW?
Who?
Britt Baker. And I think it's going to be WWE that's throwing all the money at her because
Mm.
that would be a big coup for them. And AEW hasn't had her on TV in a long time, like a year. So,
You're losing your pillar.
mm-hmm.
Wow. That's so true. Britt would be great in
Yeah.
WWE too.
Yeah. Especially like another pillar that's in danger, of course, is Jack Perry. So,
That's true. And I don't even know what like, that's speaking of blurring the lines between kayfabe and reality. That one trips me up all the fucking time.
yeah.
What
Yeah.
is your brother up to, Sabrina? Talk to him.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. My hair twin there. I don't know what's going on. No idea. He doesn't tell secrets to the hair like he used to. Kind of like our hair is walkie-talkies, just whispering.
You know, it's really funny. This is like me and my brother, we used to have rooms next to each other, and we would get kicked out to our rooms, like, when they'd be like, go to your room. The vents connected in our rooms. And so we would talk to each other through the vents all the time. And just like, so that's what it reminds me of, where it's like, it's almost like a, what are you in for?
Yep.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's so cute. Um, and exactly what me and Jack Perry do. Yep. With hair.
Yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. It's sort of like a Rapunzel thing, but kind of not.
I would love to see a Jade and Britt feud in WWE on that platform,
I
like
would
on
love
that stage.
I would love to see a Britt and Becky feud.
Oh God, that would be so good.
That
That'd
would
be
just
so good.
beautiful. Talk about artistry, man. Um,
Yeah.
but jumping back to Mercedes Monet, or as some have called her, Miss Sasha Mercedes, being Ray. I love I really like the name Sasha Mercedes.
I've been seeing a lot of, this isn't directed at Ray, but like every single time I see a Sasha Banks video or content, there's a lot of people in it who are just like, it's interesting. And of course, this is not directed at Ray. She's made her stance very clear on Sasha Banks, formerly known as Sasha Banks, Mercedes Monet. But I'm seeing a lot of people who I'm in my head, I'm like, I swear to God, this person was just like, where's Mercedes? Maybe Mercedes is going to be the big signing. And now they're like, boo, can't do a promo to save her life. Boo, why's she here? You gave up WWE for this. Look at, and so it's like, it's so wild to me because I'm not seeing those comments about Osprey leaving New Japan. I'm not seeing those comments about, Okada. So it's like this weird status thing that I'm seeing. And I was watching a little bit of like Logan Paul and Rhea Ripley have a new interview on Impulsive, which not a Logan Paul fan, but I saw Rhea Ripley. I had to click, I know. And in it, Rhea kind of, in a nice way, gently kind of says that WWE is the top promotion, right? And so it's like we have that hierarchical thing in our mind in a lot of fans where they see WWE as like this top tier thing. So I don't know. I feel like it's interesting how you could go from New Japan to AEW and people don't blink twice, but you go WWE to AEW and then all of a sudden you're like getting demoted at a job or something, you know?
I think so we've talked at length about toxicity in the IWC. And there on both sides are
Sure.
really toxic people who are at the extremes, like hardcore AEW, hardcore WWE. Um,
Right.
there have been more people who have gone from WWE to AEW, so they've had more of a chance to like mouth off if they're like they're not, being used the way that they would be in WWE. What losers they are or whatever.
That's
Um
true.
yeah. I
And now that,
oh, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry. I was just gonna say that thinking about what you're saying now, like the prime example of going AEW to WWE has been Cody, which is like this huge, like, who gets more screen time than Cody, other than like Roman and now, of course, The Rock, you could say. But so that's a complete success story. So people can't shit on that, except for when he lost at Mania last year, and people were like, "Bro, come home," like they're saying stuff like that in the comments. But Jade, we've seen that recently from before it was announced she was going to be on SmackDown this week.
Mhm.
People were like, or before she even came to the Rumble, people were like, why the fuck did you leave? Like, what are you doing? Like, you left just for them not to use you, blah, blah, blah. Even though behind the scenes, Jade was going through like obviously things with her mother, a lot of issues and things like that she doesn't need to share publicly. And so it's not just that, but then also like there's a time and place. Like people always say let Triple H cook, like let it happen kind of a thing. So now that you're saying that, that makes sense too, because I do recall people saying that about Jade in the comments too, because just because she's not on TV doesn't mean that she's not cooking on things behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Mercedes in AEW. I was
Mm-hmm.
let down by her debut. I think maybe because like it was not a surprise at all.
Yeah.
And I hate her new entrance music, along with the fact that like she does the entrance exactly the same to the music, even though it doesn't necessarily, in my mind, fit. Because
Yeah.
my brain's like, that's what? I'm seeing the same stuff, but I'm not hearing the same thing. And my brain's just like breaking down, bleeding now. Um, and her promo did leave a lot to be desired,
Tired.
but
Mm-hmm.
it could just be some rust that she's shaken off. Could be that.
That's fair. Do you think would you like to see Mercedes doing a different gimmick? Because it feels like this is like, I mean, you say the way that she's kind of differentiated is that she was the boss. Now she's the CEO. So she's like an elevation of her former self. So, like, almost from a spiritual aspect, I feel like I could get really woo woo and in the weeds here because I know she's also like a crystal girly like me, where I almost feel like it's like she's almost like shed this former layer of herself and she's further evolving. She's kind of like a Pokemon, like a wrestling Pokemon, right? So one could say that, but then other people, on the other hand, are arguing like, would we have rather have seen her evolve in a different direction?
I would have rather have seen her evolve in a different direction, especially like I'm not a fan of capitalism, so like that's just like a strike against her in my book. Like I'm just like, oh. Um, but yeah, I in that case, I would have liked to have seen her entrance evolve as
Yeah.
well. Like not just that more needed to evolve if that's the way she was going. And I didn't feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen that yet. Um, and I would like to. Like I
Yeah.
I don't want her to falter. We don't want the woman who has been paid, who has the biggest, monetary contract in wrestling to seem like she hasn't earned it, like or not that she is not like worth that money all of a sudden. And I think that's
Mhm.
also where some of the hate's coming from. Like people are like, she's getting paid more than this woman or that woman, but she's not better because she's not my favorite.
I think a lot of the comments I'm seeing are from men. So I think that the idea of a successful woman in general is very threatening to them.
Especially a woman
And
of color.
totally, 1,000%. And I feel, what I would love to see, because I love Mercedes, but I would love to also see her in a different gimmick. And I think about how I loved Brian Danielson's last WWE run when he was like this extreme, like eco, like terrorist almost, where he had like the fucking burlap belt, which by the way, I want that belt so bad. But like if she's like she's so die hard into like the crystal stuff too that I would love to almost see her take like an extreme like gimmick of that where it's like this very like satirical version of herself, you know?
She comes out in like those hippie robe type things and like,
Yes.
oh, yes. Oh. Or I would even love to see her kind of do I mean if we're going the comedy route, kind of like almost like an MLM of crystals, like
Oh
and
yes.
oils.
Oh
That
my
would be
God.
she could still be the CEO.
Yes. Oh my God. This Tony, hire us. This would be so good. I'm so here for this because your critiques of capitalism are the same as mine. And I feel like it's so tone deaf with like everything that's happening in society right now. Maybe that's also why it's not tracking. It's like people
Yeah.
aren't really thinking about being fucking CEOs during a time where their rent is fucking 2 grand plus and for a 1 bedroom, you know? And so
And
they're
there's
not getting a fucking big raise every year either, you know?
nor are CEOs being cheered. Like it's
Yeah,
real
yeah,
weird to be a baby
1,000%.
face and be like, CEO. It's like we're gonna burn you at the stake. Like we're real close to eat the rich right now. Like,
Yep. Yeah, and even like looking back at like the past like wrestling CEOs or like these people, these the authority, right? You think of like literally Vince McMahon versus Austin and like the corporate ministry, like everything from like all of these things that people were just like latching onto to just be like, this thing, you know? Like nobody, yeah, it's just you're totally spot on. It's so it I feel like I want to see her be like a fucking MLM spiritualist. You know, I want her to have like a fake Facebook storefront where she does lives on Facebook for crystals and shit.
mm-hmm. Oh, and it's perfect because, like, I mean, a bag of crystals would make a great weapon.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Yeah, yeah. And she could even do like a whole thing, right? Where you do things like you bless your crystals and you like purify them and things like that. So it'd be almost really funny where she could have like a gimmick where she's doing something like that, but it's like then she like strikes them with the crystals, you know?
And imagine if she gets a belt, like she could have a whole crystal belt. Be amazing.
Yeah. That would be so good. I hate when we do this because then we fantasy book and it's what I want to happen now.
We're putting it out into the world to make it happen. This one I don't see happening, but uh
But now that we're talking about it, it's kind of cool because it's a positive side effect from people being like outspoken about things or things not working, then you have an opportunity to pivot. So it's clear that whatever, maybe it's the rust, right, that she's trying to shake off.
mhm.
Maybe it's the fact that like we need to pivot to a different gimmick. But then I think about Drew, who, let's be honest, everything Drew was doing, I know you love Drew, everything Drew was doing was kind of stale. The way they were booking him was kind of weird. And just a lot of things about it. A lot of people have feelings about he should have taken the belt off Roman at Clash of the Castle, even. People were saying for a long time because his whole title runs didn't suck during the pandemic, but it was just frustrating that nobody was there to watch it and see it. And so it's just, so I think about something like that where now Drew's totally pivoted. So it took like this shit situation of CM Punk getting injured. It's like, okay, who are we going to swap in for this? And then fucking Drew's on deck and stepped up like literally a fucking champ.
Mhm. And I feel like this humor is very much so his, and he
Mhm.
is just like letting it rip, and it is so so good. And they've said that like the promo from Monday with Rollins, Punk, and Drew was like not scripted. Like they were given like, get to
A
this
loose
point.
outline.
Yeah, a loose
Mm-hmm.
outline. And they fucking ran with it. Like my favorite part will forever be Drew talking about being the chosen one, and then CM Punk being like, and who was it that chose you? Some paragon of morality, and Drew's just the look on Drew's face, like, you motherfucker.
You know what I loved about watching that whole thing too was that I was worried in a situation. There's a couple points where I was worried because as a big CM Punk fan, I also listened to the negativity and the backlash as well. So I try to be as unbiased as possible, but in my head I was like, is CM Punk gonna like take this spotlight for himself? But he was really great about sharing it and like not, because at one point he kind of talked over Drew and I was like, uh-oh. And then Drew kind of snapped back with something. I was like, okay, we're good. We're still rolling, you know?
Mhm.
And I thought that those three guys did such a badass job of like balancing out like the back and forth in a way that was really fun and like just cool to watch.
Yeah, agreed. And like, unless they've squashed their beef, which is entirely possible, Seth
Mm-hmm.
Rollins and CM Punk in real life do not like each other.
Yeah.
And it's very well documented. And I think it was also like a redeeming moment for Punk in a way of being like, see, I can work with people I don't like.
Yeah.
Look at me do so. Merp.
That's true. That's very true.
Um, but mm, I kind of I kind of wonder if like this whole time CM Punk's just like every time he does something like that, if he's just like, suck it, Tony. I'm not the
Speaking of
problem.
speaking of Tony, did you see Swerve release statements recently where he said he never had an issue with Punk and like how he was so great to work with and all these things. He's like, I didn't have a lot of interaction with him, but he's like, but it wasn't like bad at all. He was like, he even popped in on like one of my photo shoots and they just shared like some goofy photos, like outtakes and stuff. And he's like, he congratulated me several times on things. He was just really supportive. So now in my head, I'm like, I hope that doesn't derail anything. Like, I mean, obviously I don't know Tony Khan, but you don't want to, I think about like, as a Vince McMahon, I could see him getting really pissed about something like that back in the day where it's like, oh, he would take that as like a threat to the ego of like, you're sidestepping, like you're in a way, you're challenging me in the public. You know, you're like defying me by speaking out like this, even though it's just a loose comment of like, yeah, I didn't see anything wrong with it. That I'm sure was extracted from an interview and then twisted. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I feel like, not that I think Tony would punish Swerve, but in my mind, I kind of had that thing where I was like, I hope this doesn't stop anything, you know?
Yeah. And I think as wrestling fans, we've been very much so conditioned with that because of Satan who used to run WWE. Um
Sure.
Tony Khan has shown that he is kind of the opposite of that, in that he puts up with too much. So unless he's turned over a new leaf, I'm not particularly worried about that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I definitely do have some Vince PTSD, that's for sure.
As we all do. As
Yeah.
we all do. Um, I'm also loving Okada in
Yes.
AEW. Like I'm so happy that he immediately aligned himself with like the ridiculousness that it like that Matthew and Nicholas Jackson currently
Yeah.
are. Um it's it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I also love, as soon as I saw that, I was just like,
It's
Nicholas,
perfect.
yeah, I was like, Nicholas, he's just doing this so he can more easily steal your gear all the time. 'Cause that was like a gag that he does whenever he sees um Nick or like they're in the same arena, he runs and puts on his gear. And obviously it does not fit the same way. They have very different builds. And then like he
Yeah.
like waits for Nick to find him. And it's look up
This is
clip.
Okada.
This is Okada. Okada does this every time and
Love
pops
it.
neck each time, and he's just like Jesus. And I think the last time he was like, "Don't rip my gear, man. This is for a pay-per-view."
Was that on BTE where they
Oh
talk
yeah,
about it?
oh
Oh
yeah.
my God. I need to watch BT. I haven't seen very many episodes.
The stuff during the pandemic, especially, is like gold,
Okay.
pure
I'm gonna
gold.
have to go back and watch.
Yeah, you will understand my love of the Dark Order when you do that. Actually, you should watch it a lot now because Amanda Huber is on it a lot.
Oh, nice. Love her. Shout out to Amanda.
And you can see her like trying not to like laugh with some of the things because it's like ridiculous because she's like punishing them for being bad
Yeah.
and they're getting like lessons on how to be a heel from Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, that's cool.
It's
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Don't mind me just sitting here completely plugging being the Dark Order. I
See, now I have homework.
yep, yep. I'm giving everyone homework today, folks.
Okay, but literally, speaking of PTSD and the Young Bucks, The Young Bucks and this EVP gimmick literally give me such workplace PTSD. Anybody who's ever worked in a toxic, especially corporate environment kind of a thing, oh my God, like all of the corporate double speak, like it makes me cringe. And I try, so in my professional life, I try so hard not to say, hey, let's circle back on this because I've had so many people like use that as a way to kind of shut down really important conversations. And I'm just like, and now I just see like all these fake press releases and shit they're really like releasing where they're just like, you know what, we'll circle back on this. And like all these like corporate jargon buzzwords they're using are fucking hilarious. I'm so here for this. And the Young Bucks are underrated.
Yes, yes. And they like, I'm also wondering because like they have to be pulling some of this from people they've worked with before.
Totally.
And I have a sneaking suspicion because they did not have the best um interaction with higher up. I think it was both at Impact and Ring of Honor or one of them. Like it was
Yeah.
really like, and obviously like there was that you'll hear them talk about WWE like the handshake thing sometimes because
Mhm.
Booker T got like a bug up his ass about like I guess he was in the ring like running drills or something when the Young Bucks had come through for like a tryout or like as extras or something. And because he was working, they didn't go and like shake his hand. And he held that against like they didn't want to bother him. And yeah, he like trashed their name in an interview not long after that or something. So because of it.
It's so it's so funny how that is so ingrained in wrestling culture, even like the local indies. When I was gonna do backstage like promo work with people and stuff and do interviews, um, that was the first thing I was told was you need to make sure you shake everybody's hand. You need to make direct eye contact. You need to smile. You need to do this. And I was just like, especially as like a neurodivergent person, I was like, that's a lot of pressure. Which
It's
I mean, like I'm pretty good at like putting on that like game face when I have to like do stuff, but damn, it's like also like that weird like thing of like I'm a straight shooter. You know what I mean? Like if I don't like you, I'm gonna tell you. I'm not gonna go on a podcast and complain about it and not be upfront. And like also I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not gonna be like I'm gonna put two and two together and have that emotional intelligence to be like, I was working in the ring. Of course they wouldn't come up to me. Duh. Who the fuck wouldn't want to meet Booker T, like a legend? It's obvious that they're not gonna like brush him off.
yeah, exactly. Um Yeah, it's so funny because like the handshake thing is so ingrained in me as well that like just as a fan, like when I met Effie, the first thing I did was I stuck out my hand to shake his hand. I like that is not expected of me, but I was just like,
Oh, that's cute.
oh.
You haven't actually, I know that we're talking about something totally separate, but you should totally segue real quick and talk about meeting Effie.
Yeah. So I've gone now to officially my second indie show in my area. And I'm hooked. I am hooked, hooked, hooked. After the first one I
Yes.
was. And I'm so happy that like I always want to say it's Smash Mouth Wrestling. It's not. It's Smash
Shit.
Masters Wrestling.
Is it actually called wrestling?
Wrestling, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
It
I
is.
love it.
Um they're so thank God it's not like a bloody indie because that was, of course, my biggest concern because of who
Yeah.
I am. It is there's a good amount of camp, and I'm all about that. I love my campy. I love my haha. I mean, I love Orange Cassidy.
Enough said.
Yeah. So, Effie came and he was in the main event against I cannot Hawthorne is his the last name and it's like Theo or something. Anyway, he is a thespian and he has a voice that he does and it's fantastic and oh um so it was the two of them and it was just a fantastic show of the two of them being like ridiculous and um before I met him there was my friend Chelsea went with me who has never been to a wrestling show. She's never sat down and watched wrestling and we were sitting in like the second row um like kind of in an island by ourselves because the seats that had been next to us were pulled back for like a third row was created on this side of the ring for some folks came in with some people in wheelchairs, so everybody else with them like pulled it back to make their own. So we were just kind of this two for island by ourselves. So we had two other wrestlers come out in the beginning and sit by us as they were like heckling other people in the ring. It was great, and it
Yeah.
was her first show. And for the main event, Effie and Hawthorne pull up seats again right next to us and start hitting each other. So she got a real like up close look at wrestling that day. But when I met Effie after the show, he was just like he was apologizing because his voice was shot. He was like, I've been screaming for 3 days. I'm so sorry. And it's just like, it's perfect because it's also Austin 316 day. And I was like, you have the perfect like Austin voice. And he was like, and he did like a little Austin impersonation at that point. And
Oh.
it was pretty spot on. Like I got him to laugh. So I was very happy with myself. But if you can look behind me, I have my Wrestling is Gay fan with his signature on it, which you can't see, but it's right there, I promise.
Oh,
Um,
that's so cool.
and these are flameless candles, by the way, the black things, because I'm not setting my house on fire. But at night, it gives it a real altar vibe. It just like lights up the Wrestling is Gay. Um, and he also showed
Is that our new Lord and Savior, gay wrestling?
maybe, yes, 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 yes. Oh yeah, we had said about
Or Effie?
Willow doing, yeah. I'll have, I can't remember what we said we were going to say though. We'll
We'll think about it.
we'll think about it. Yeah. But yeah, he was an absolute delight and just like the sweetest man. And it was so great. Like whatever you think as far as like how awesome it is to see Effie, he is absolutely amazing live. If you have the chance to do it, go do it. Also, the
Yeah,
fan was only like $20 with the autograph. And like I got a picture with him as well. It was a great day.
that's so cool.
Yes. Yes. And my
With
offer
the
still stands because I'm going to see the GCW or not the GCW show, the FU's Big Gay Brunch for WrestleMania.
Yes,
Have the fans, I'll snag you one and send it to you.
please do. Yes. No, I would love that. They were so the last big gay brunch, they were out of the fans because of course at an event like Big Gay Brunch, people are just buying them up so quick. So I hope they order a ton because I would love one. That'd be perfect for my dream wrestling room someday to have that just fanning over the top of everything. Oh my God, perfect.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I will do
Thank
my
you.
best to get my paws on it. And it's not general seating, so I have like an assigned row, so I won't have to like be so crazy.
Smart. Yeah.
It's
Oh my.
more so that those were the only tickets left were what was there. So, and I didn't want front row because I didn't want to throw up. Uh
Yeah. You probably won't see blood. This is the only GCW show you're doing the weekend, right?
oh yeah, this is the only one.
Yeah. Oh my God. It would have been so cool to go to Bloodsport. Though I'm like,
Shayna
I'm
Baszler, fuck yeah.
I know you're bae.
Did you see my
um,
clip with her and Rhea? Sorry, finish your thought and then we'll get into that.
no, you're good. You're good.
It was from a house show. It's
Yeah, oh yeah.
with
Yeah. How she
Shayna
sat in the
and
corner.
yeah. Yeah, and then Nia got up there. Oh, love it. Love it. Shayna was just like, I'm living the internet's life today.
So funny. Did you see? Yeah, was that the same clip with Nia Jax where somebody's feeding her popcorn in the front row?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was so funny. I made the mistake of reading the comments on that video and I shouldn't have.
No, I'll never read the comments on those. I was shocked because when the one of Rhea doing the stink face to Nia first went up,
Yeah.
I saw it pretty early because there was only like 20 some comments on it, and they
Yeah.
weren't that bad. It was just like a lot of people being like with the meme of Dolph Ziggler and it should have been me,
Yeah.
and saying things like Buddy Murphy is a lucky man, stuff like that. That
Yeah.
stuff's fine. I'm not going back to check those comments now. Like that's for sure.
Totally. Oh man, I do love it. And going back to like the Logan Paul podcast with her, it was just cool how positively she spoke about Buddy, and it was cute to hear that she's actually jealous. If roles were reversed, she would be kind of uncomfortable if Buddy Matthews did what she's doing with Dom.
Hmm.
Like I was like, I feel that girl. I feel that so deep. And like shout out to Buddy Matthews because he has to be super cool to just be like, yeah, like you have to be really confident in the person you love. And it's cool that he's just able to kind of separate that. And then he's always really good too when like the fans are at AEW shows are shitty. Like I was at a show in LA when the people were just totally just shitting on Buddy Matthews and Rhea Ripley and stuff, and he just brushed it off. It takes a lot to be able to just shake that shit off.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of feel like, dating Alexa Bliss and like being engaged to her before had to be in a way like helpful